We had a project last year. In fact, it was a road in Pictou County to the Michelin plant, and Michelin provided the crumb rubber for the particular project. It's used, this type of asphalt is used extensively in the U.S. in the southern parts of the U.S. We believe it has good applicability to the conditions that we have in Nova Scotia. But unfortunately, the experiment last year failed, and it failed not because of any human error, but simply because the type of equipment that we had was not adequate. Not adequate for the particular job. So we abandoned it and used a normal asphalt for that job. We are, however, looking at another project at the present time. We're going to use a different type of machine, and that project is this year or next year? We haven't decided yet, but there is another project that we're going to pursue either this year or next year. And Madam Chair, rubberized asphalt has certain advantages, particularly as I say, in provinces like Nova Scotia, where you have freezing and thaw, and freezing and thaw over a fairly long period. This gives expansion and contraction to the road surface, so that it can accommodate those kinds of temperature changes without actually getting a break in the asphalt and getting that craze that you occasionally see in asphalt surfaces. So yes, we are looking at those kinds of things. That is a very interesting one because it's not overly expensive, and I believe it's going to prove very, very useful for our circumstances here in this province.
If the Honourable Member from Victoria Lakes would allow the Honourable Member from Halifax Fairview on an introduction.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to thank the member for yielding the floor. Madam Chairman, in the West Gallery today, we have 16 students from grades 5 and 6 at the Armdale campus of the Halifax Christian Academy. They're accompanied today by Lugina Ming, Stephen DeVries, Donna Ennis, and Kathy Splain. I'd like to ask our guests to rise and receive the welcome of the House.
Thank you, and I certainly hope our guests enjoy their stay. The Honourable Member from Victoria Lakes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Minister, I hope we can develop some kind of a composition or material that could be as long-lasting as the minister. Then all our problems would be solved in road construction. And I mean that, Mr. Minister, as a compliment. And as I told you personally the other day, I have the highest respect for you, sir, but I do want my roads fixed. And having said that, Mr. Minister, as I said, my goal is to follow you, sir, and when I become Minister of Transportation, I am already working toward that goal. I get very upset when I see the road crew out there putting what they called cold patch into potholes. All it is gravel with tar, and it 2 or 3 trips over that. What doesn't flick up under your fenders and you carry off with your tires bounces out within a day or so. I'm just wondering, through your research department, would you consider, if I sent you a letter, I'm actively pursuing the possibility of creating a material to patch potholes. It's not rocket science what I'm proposing, but it's something that I have brought forward to the Cape Breton University Laboratory Department. And they are bringing together, they're going to make an estimate on the possibility of the cost to research this, but what my idea to them was, and they've been very open to accept it, and it's come out of the idea, again, of their favorite Seal Island Bridge. We could not get the reflectors, as they call them, delineators, to stay on the bridge. Young Steve McDonald shopped around and shopped around. He's an area the OC down there, and or OS, I'm sorry, the operations supervisor. And he shopped around until he came up with a double cylinder that holds 2 tubes of caulking, and you cut them open, and when you squeeze it, it comes out at one. It's an epoxy, and you put that on the bridge, and the delineator will stay. It stayed there all through the winter with the snow plows and the wings, the spraying the snow up, and they're still there. And it's very effective. That's given me the idea that if we could go out with a Department of Transportation truck with a load of gravel, a container or two of some kind of a solution, and maybe you could mix it in a wheelbarrow or mix it in something that you could take a wheelbarrow. If a pothole was to take a wheelbarrow full of gravel, you could put that in the wheelbarrow, put in your 2 types of solution. Maybe one could be water, wet the gravel, and then you add something to it, mix it up, dump it in the hole, level it off, and within 5 minutes or so, it would harden. I mean, we're in this day and age. If we can send a man to the moon, we can make things that get that dry instantly. They pour concrete in the middle of the winter time now and whatnot. Why can't we have something that would harden, whether it be August and fill a pothole, or whether it be in January, so that we could go out and do it? So I'm just my next step is in the research end of it is to the financial capability of doing this, and the laboratory down there is very enthusiastic about doing it. I dealt with Mrs. Carol McLeod, who was the contact person there, and the chemists down there are very enthused about looking at this and testing and trying out different compositions. So I'm just wondering, being innovative and technology-minded, the Department of Transportation, would you consider a request like that, if I was to send that into the department, where you would consider funding an experimental project like that, and Cape Breton University would do the research and see if we could come up with a suitable product?
I would just let you know that there's about 1 minute left to this questioning. The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
Well, I'd like to answer the honourable member's question. I was wondering if the House would agree to extending that for my answer. Thank you. I hope. Patching potholes in the winter is a tremendous problem. It's worldwide. Everybody recognizes the fact that in the summertime you go out with red hot asphalt and you put it in a hole, you roll it or tamp it down, and it's going to stay there. In the wintertime, the problem is you put in asphalt in a hole. It's not hot asphalt. It's a cold patch. It congeals and hardens, but the trouble is you don't get adhesion to the sides of the potholes, so that traffic on the road vibrates and shakes the pothole loose, and eventually your mixture within that hole comes out in a solid block and flies off somewhere into the ditch beside the road. The whole problem is, as the honourable member has already said, is that in wintertime it's a real problem, and we've tried several things. I should tell the honourable member in the way of innovative solutions to that, and some of them have been very expensive. But however, they haven't worked, and so we're still using cold asphalt. The honourable member says that they're doing some research up in Cape Breton. We'd be delighted to hear about it, because there's no doubt about it. There has to be a solution in this day and age to getting that adhesion to the surface of the pothole, and if we can do that, we can repair potholes in the wintertime, and that would be a major advance. Madam Chair, thank you.
Time allotted for Liberal questions has ended, and we're going to go to the official opposition. And for the purposes of Ledge TV, the honourable member from Hants East will be standing in the member from Halifax Needham's spot. Thank you. The honourable member from Hants East.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I don't want the minister to think that I chose this position purely to stare him down. I found in 7 years that's difficult, to do. So I want to say thanks very much to the minister and to the staff. I appreciate an opportunity to question them, and I want to thank the member for Cape Breton West for allowing some flexibility for us to question right now, and particularly for me, because actually Natural Resources is starting in the other room, and I really should be there. And so it took a little bit of rejigging with my colleagues so that I could question the minister. The first thing I want to ask the minister, and I know he's aware of the Maitland the bridge situation, and the councillor for the area and some of the residents I met with the other day, and so they were very keen to have the minister go out. So you and I have discussed that, and seems to be not possible, and I can understand the demands. Not now, yeah, right, and but anyway, I think the question came up actually as to whether or not Mr. Delaney could go out, so and have a look there. So I just wonder if that's a possibility.
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
Well, Madam Chair, actually, one of these days, hopefully in the very near future, this House is going to pass the budget and pass some legislation, and we're going to adjourn. And when we do that, Madam Chair, I'm quite prepared to go up and take a look there. As I understand it, and I'm not absolutely sure about this, but I think that the Department of Environment were there yesterday, I believe, and I can't see the Minister of Environment, but I can confirm that perhaps later in the day. But there is a problem there. And I don't know if it's an easy one to fix or a difficult one to fix, but it would appear that Armor Rock or something of that nature on the and I'm saying on the left-hand side of the river. The honourable member I know told me yesterday, you're wrong, it's on the right-hand side of the river, but we'll find the right side of the river anyway to try and prevent that scouring action that's taking place. There's also a washout from the road down to the river, and obviously that too is going to have to be taken care of. I don't know if that requires a culvert across the road or what, but obviously we can't afford to have the shoulder of the road washing away in that fashion and just getting into the river.
The Honourable Member from Hants East.
I appreciate that, and I just wanted to make it clear to the minister that I recognize that even in nature, when things move to the right, it causes problems. So if you could stay to the left, you're probably farther ahead. So you're right. There is a problem with the shoulder, and whether it's it looks like there was some underground piping there and some of it has collapsed. And I would appreciate it when the House rises if you could come up with me and we could take a look at that. It's not your usual bridge over troubled waters situation. There's the way the department had tried to reinforce underneath that bridge and kind of had created a sluiceway, and the fact that it's tidal as well, I think, is just added to the complication in that area. So I'll thank you for that. And I want to ask, there is a new school in Elmsdale that the province built in 2001, I think, and if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, it's off of McMillan Drive, which is a municipal road, and so there's been fair complaint that the province had a responsibility to pave that road that where is the entrance to the school. And I think much more of a factor. Well, like one of the complications, I guess, that came to me from one of the counselors was, and I guess it must be the engineering staff at the municipality has said that there's a 30% increase in the cost of paving that due to bring it up to a commercial standard. And I asked the engineer, Mr. Kelly in Windsor, about that. I said, is there such a thing as a commercial standard in paving? Like, and he said, you pave roads, it'd be no different than the number 2 highway. He said, I never heard tell of such a thing. And so I haven't really found out exactly what it is that the municipal office is referring to, but they were, I think, on the idea that the department should fund the difference. But one thing I would like to see the department do, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, that school comes under your department still, and is not handed off to wherever. I'm not sure who. And because I just looked at some correspondence between the municipality and your department, and I'm wondering about the department funding actually, or the province helping to fund for a sidewalk along that street. There was someone trying to avoid a pothole here about a week or so ago. Moved over on the road and struck a child on a bicycle. And so I'm just wondering, it would seem if the province doesn't see itself responsible for paving this road, which is a municipal road, I wonder if they would see a responsibility in terms of safety and helping to fund a sidewalk there.
Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
The honourable member has asked me a question, and I wish I could give him a more adequate response. But number one, the Department of Highways does not build sidewalks, period, anywhere. If indeed there's a school that requires a sidewalk, then that's something between the school board and the Department of Education and a contractor that would be hired by them to do it, but we do not do that. Secondly, on that particular road, when they talk about a commercial road, I think what they're referring to is a classification of road on weight. In other words, it would not be subject to the spring weight restrictions. So there are 2 standards of road. Okay, you wouldn't require that to go to a school because school buses obviously accommodated under the present weight system. That road, I believe, is a municipal road, and as such, it belongs to the municipality, and it's their job to look after it. It's interesting because the municipalities in Nova Scotia don't have that many roads to look after, and they're going to be receiving considerable sums of money from the federal government from the gasoline tax to look after their roads. So we'd be delighted to see them using all those funds that they get on roads. I suspect that some of those monies that they get are going to go on to other infrastructure projects that perhaps they may consider to be higher up the priority list than roads.
Nancy's.
Well, thank you, Mr. Minister. I appreciate that, and I'll. Do you know what you're probably not familiar with the timeline on those federal dollars? Do you know when municipalities are supposed to get those?
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
They actually flow in fiscal 2005, 2006, but they are subject to the federal budget for the appropriation of money to distribute.
The Honourable Member from Hants East.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Okay, well, I'd like to get a timeline, if I could, on some other bridges. And actually, I've written the Minister, and I'm wondering about the Weir Bridge, which is on the, I think it's the Weir Bridge, is on the South Rawdon Road, and in Rawdon, and I don't think it's referred to as the Lakelands. I guess I don't have that right at my fingertips, but there's the Herbert River Bridge, which was close to where you lived, the concrete bridge, and I've heard, concerns about that for some time. And those two bridges, I'd like to know, as quickly, as they can be dealt with.
I'll have to take that question under advisement, Madam Chair, but I will make a commitment that I'll get that information to the minister, to the member. Actually, the concrete bridge on Trunk 14, I crawled under that. Excuse me. I crawled under that bridge to take a look, and in point of fact, the abutments on the bridge are good, but the deck of the bridge and the walls down either side, which are actually concrete, are badly cracking and popping out. So we'll have to do some work on that particular bridge.
The honourable member from Hants East.
Thank you, and I got to say, I'm impressed. I am. I'm impressed that the minister would get down and underneath the bridge to look, because it's something that I've kind of been intending to do, and so if the minister beat me to it, and I would tend to think I could hop in and out of there easier than the minister, and so if he did that, I have to say I'm very impressed, and I know the people who have raised this with me will be impressed to find out that you cared enough to get down there and look. So a couple of other areas. One is in my own backyard. Actually, I met with the residents who live on I live on the Renfrew Road, which is a gravel road, and then it branches. It actually branches, but continues. The maintained portion is actually the Lake Road, or some people refer to as the Monte Vista Road. It's about 3 kilometers, and those residents are quite concerned. I think you're probably aware of the chip seal notion, and so I think they've, in the meeting that I was at, I think they've kind of abandoned that idea for trying to get it paved. So in my experience of doing this job and the roads in Hants East, I can't think of a gravel road that's been paved other than a subdivision road, like a cost-shared road. And my thought is, when I spoke to them, that this would be a particularly difficult project to try to get done in light of some of the other paved roads that need to be repaved, and as well as probably the road when you leave the number 2 highway in Enfield to head out past where I live. That pavement really should be replaced at some point, and I said, well, perhaps their road could be done as part of a bigger project if it was ever going to be done. But anyway, and I'll be pursuing that. I know they're doing a petition, and activity will increase. But I just wondered what the minister could tell me, in regards to gravel roads and maybe that road in particular.
Madam Chair, that's why I'm making an intervention, because I'll be pleased to answer that particular question. At the present time, it is policy to only pave gravel roads that are J-class roads, which are the residential streets that we do on a 50-50 basis with the municipalities. Other gravel roads, and we have about 10,000 kilometers of gravel roads in the province of Nova Scotia, we are not paving at the present time because we want to protect the ones that we presently have that are paved, which require repaving. But however, I can tell the honourable member that we have a program that we are formulating at the present time, which will probably be in the next fixed fiscal year, 2006, 2007. We will be allotting a block of money to start off a pilot program of paving gravel roads, secondary roads in the province. It won't be a lot of money. I don't know, maybe a million or two, maybe $3 million but, initially. But that will at least get us started on this program, because some of those gravel roads, as the honourable member is aware, because he has some in his writing, are very heavily residential. But they are not J-class roads, but they're still like a J-class road in that they are houses cheek by jowl, virtually one after the other. And those are the kinds of roads that we want to tackle initially under this program. And again, it'll be like the J-class program that we have at the present time. It will be divided up county by county, evenly across the province, and we'll do whatever we can do.
The honourable member from Hants East.
So does that mean that the residents would have to cost share? Is that what you're saying? The residents would have to cost share those? Okay. I can think on my road in particular, they're not. I think there's 68 people live on that road. It's 3 kilometers of road with 68 houses, and all the houses, most of them actually at one end. And in my own case, have roughly 170 acres with a fair bit of frontage and not a lot of houses. So I'm not sure, depending on how the math is done, how that would work for me. But
But however, again, there's the proposition that the municipalities may also, again, from the money that they receive from the federal government on the gasoline tax, may choose within their own municipality to also step in and cost share.
The honourable member from Hants East.
would those roads have to be submitted by the municipalities? Like the same as in the J-class roads. I think the municipality approaches the department and they petition the residents and.
The honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I said before, actually the program is being formulated at the present time, and that is something that will be in the program, but I can't tell you what it will be.
Member from Hants East.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Minister. I appreciate that. I look forward to hearing a little more about that as it develops, and hopefully a little flexibility. I would ask. Just one other road I'll just throw in. You don't have to comment. It's in the Stanley area of my constituency, and I'm trying to think if there's a name for it. I remember pursuing it some time ago, and I've forgotten what the name would be. It's about 0.5 of a kilometer or less, a 0.4 maybe. It's a very short section. Actually, it goes from the Hants West line. It's a what? Vaughan Road, and it almost strikes me as the fact that the pavement stopped at the Hants East line, tends to make me think, I wasn't around when that happened. But anyway, there's a gentleman, Mr. Barkhouse, lives on that section of road, and there was a lot of logging in that area. I think coming out past the airport, perhaps the Stanley Airport, and he went to actually one time went to clean out the gutters on his roof and or his eaves, and when he undid the bolts, they fell off. They were full of dust, that had blown up onto his roof from these trucks going by. And then as it rained, it washed this silt into his eaves troughs, and they were plugged full. And to give you some idea, so he's saying, is it possible to get this little stretch of road paved? So if there is a program that would help him, I'd be glad to see it. When you look at it, you say to yourself, how ridiculous can this be? Because we have pavement here, and we have pavement here, and we have this short little section of public road that didn't get done. The other, there is a road. And it's called the Bar Settlement Road, and as long as I've been doing this job, we've always said, well, if we could get a little bit done on this road every year. And I think 2 years ago, I had the engineer, Mr. Kelly, out, and he said, okay, I believe you. You don't have to tell me anymore. The road was so bad, the mail deliverer wouldn't go over it. And so the department did do a fair bit of work. And my fear is, as I talked to him afterwards, well, you know, we spent quite a bit on that last year, but my point was, yes, but it required a fair bit spent every year. If you did it for a little bit every year for 5 years. And so I think the road this spring still broke up fairly badly, and it does require a fair bit of work. And I'm just thinking that you know, in this day and age, the road I'm on, the gravel road I'm on, is a fairly good road, and I think about those residents on that road, and I know their road is not as good as mine, and so I know the quality can improve. And I don't know if Mr. Delaney would have any. I don't know if you guys would have that information as to any plan for that particular road with you here today, and so that I won't pursue it. But I'm really concerned that a little bit every year is done, as in particular graveling and ditching on that road.
The Honourable Minister of Transportation, Public Works.
Was there a question at the end of that, or you just comment on what?
I guess I was looking for a reaction, but well, I figure if the minister will get down and look under a bridge, he probably was out walking on the Bar Settlement Road. So I'm.
The Honourable Minister of Transportation, Public Works.
Madam Chair, I happen to know the member's writing quite well. It used to belong to the Progressive Conservatives at one time, and he has a large number of roads. The roads within East Hants, though, are on average quite good, and we have spent, I think he will agree, a fairly substantial sum of money most years on roads in his area. And road repair runs sort of in cycles to a certain extent, in that we try and accommodate contractors in their tendering, because we can get better prices if we have a few jobs within a few kilometers of each other. So sometimes you might have a year that you don't have a tremendous amount going on, and another year where you do have a tremendous amount going on, and so it's not unusual to have those kinds of things occur. I know that I went out with the honourable member, and we went down, I forget the name of the road, the East Uniacke Road? Yeah, East Uniacke Road. And that's a road that's not in great shape. I think we're doing a section this year. The road is generally pretty poor, and we should probably do the whole thing. But the trouble is, we just don't have the money to do those kinds of things, and the best we can do is nibble away at it and do a section year after year and try and catch up. But quite honestly, as I say, the roads in East Hants are something like the roads in West Hants. Our roads were in West Hants were terrible because there was nothing done, not 1 cent spent for a period of about 7 years. So they were in bad shape, and they're catching up. And I would say that East Hants and West Hants now are pretty well equal.
The honourable member from Hants East.
Yeah, thank you, Minister. And he's right. The minister did come over the East Uniacke Road with me, and I think the concern, and I'll relay the Hansard of budget estimates to those people. Where the department has tendered, where the area stops, actually was an area that had some work.
Order. The Honourable Minister of Transportation, Public Works, and myself are having problems hearing the questions. It's a bit quiet over on this side. Thank you. Honourable Member of Hants East.
I think I'll get to the Minister of Education on the McMillan Drive sidewalk. I think the residents who are on the section that wasn't tendered recognize that the previous section, some 20 years or so ago, it had some work the part that's being repaved, and I think they're feeling somewhat left out. But I'll continue to pursue that. I think they're thinking this is the oldest section. It has never really been redone. And but whether it's the 202 through West Gore, McGuinness Road, and I'm not going to knock the minister. I know that when the Liberal member was in Hants East around the 96, 97, they started to do some paving, did most of the 14 and some of the South-Rawdon Road and Burncoat Head Road, and I think probably while there was pavement going in Hants East, it wasn't going in Hants West, and so I think even I recognized that, as naive as I might have been coming to the House of Assembly, but I've been now here for 7 years, and I think we have had a road paved every year except for 2003, the year of the election. Surprising to me, but. And I guess when I think about some of the roads, the 354, the 215, the 215 being part of it is part of the Glues Cap Trail, and it just baffles me that we've spent money on an ad to advertise the province, to the rest of the world, and yet we have a route that's determined to be part of one of the designated tourist routes that can be so bad. And I'd like to see the province, actively pursue, if it's not a program, to see that those tourist routes are in great shape, but at least put some effort there. And the roads in Hants East that need to be paved definitely need to be paved. I mean, and I think the minister is aware of that. So anything that can be done, to try. I guess I even look at it thinking what the potential length of my political career might be, and I'm not aspiring to maybe be around as long as the honorable minister, but I'm thinking if we do X number of kilometers a year, we're never going to get caught up, And the roads that are being done or were done recently will have to be redone before there's some that haven't been done at all. So I worry about trying to get things done in a timely manner, but definitely roads that are tourist routes and so on would seem definitely. And I'm not even talking about kind of side roads like White Settlement, for heaven's sake. The road is in terrible condition, and it's not going to get bumped up very high compared to, say, the 215 or the 354, and they're not done yet. So I don't know if the minister wants to respond.
Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
Yes, Madam Chair. The 215 is a road that runs along the shore, and it's gorgeous. I mean, it's just a beautiful part of Nova Scotia, and there are lots of beautiful parts of Nova Scotia, but that one in particular is a wonderful area, and it's certainly a great road for tourists to travel, except that the road, Highway 215, is not in particularly great shape. As a matter of fact, 215 was paved by Mr. Robert Stanfield, so you can get some indication of how far back that goes. We are doing sections of the 215, and I would imagine over the next 5, maybe 6, 7, 8 years, somewhere in that area, we'll have the route paved. But it's incredibly costly. It's a long stretch of highway. I'll have to turn to Martin and ask. It's about 120, 130 kilometers. Yeah, it's a long highway. It's about 120 kilometers. You work that out at $175,000 a kilometer, and you're taking almost the whole capital budget for a year to do it. But we'll get there, and we're moving on it.
From Hants East.
I'm going to tidy up my remarks only because I'm supposed to be in natural resources, and I think my colleagues have questions as well. I guess a couple of points. One is definitely, and Minister I won't force you to respond because for time, but the question of snow removal. The question of snow removal in East Hants last year, it was a real issue. And I talked to Mr. Delaney, and they said that they were having a relook at this, but definitely having equipment that can move snow, I would see that as important. Everybody who's plowing driveways in East Hants has a four-wheel drive truck, yet the department doesn't have one in East Hants. I find that hard to believe. So. And if you're thinking, well, we don't want more equipment because you don't get all that use out of it in the summertime or whatever, well, every farmer who has a baler has it stored away for 10 months of the year until he needs it for, a month. So I think the taxpayers are willing to pay to have the right equipment available at the right time of year. And I think with that, I'll end my remarks and say thank you, and I'll pursue you outside the chamber on other issues.
The Honourable Member, excuse me, the Honourable Minister of Transportation.
The last remarks of the Honourable Member, because they're quite appropriate. We are doing a review right across the province of equipment and the type of equipment and the amount of equipment that we have in the various sheds across the province. The new equipment that we're getting is very, very much superior to the old equipment that we have had, and we're replacing the old equipment as rapidly as we can. We're spending about, 10 million? Or 6 million. 6 million this year on new equipment, and as I say, we are doing this review. It'll be finished, what about September? Midsummer, I'm advised, and so we'll have the equipment perhaps redistributed across the province this coming winter, which we hope will take care of those areas where they get the very heavy snow that requires either heavy-duty snowplows or else front-end loaders of considerable capacity. So, as I say, that's being done, and it should be in place for next winter.
The Honourable Member from Halifax Atlantic.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Mr. Minister, I think I better give you a couple of minutes to rest your voice here, so I'll try to keep asking. I have only a few minutes, but one of the things that I guess hopefully is the unifying question. In my riding of Halifax Atlantic is included in the Halifax Regional Municipality, but a lot of that area is in fact rural, and so there are a number of provincial roads. There are also former rural roads, which are, essentially still rural roads. And there seems to be a real question at this point as to exactly who is going to be responsible for them over the long haul. I've talked to transportation engineers, and there seems to be a bit of a vacuum, I guess, a sense of not knowing just what inventory of streets the two jurisdictions, municipal and provincial, even each have on the table to exchange. So I have the sense that perhaps there is some paralysis going on at this level. Perhaps this has to do, well, I should say, give you some examples, first of all, of the kinds of roads about which I am approached. The Nickerson Road at East Pennant is some 30 years old, and it's never been graded. And what's happened is I've begun being approached by residents who have been living there for the 30 years and are getting old enough that they can no longer go out and do the patching of the roads and the grading of the roads themselves, which is literally what they have been doing. And they are hoping that at this point the road will be finally graded. So the Nickerson Road is the sort of thing that has perhaps been lying in this interregnum. The Grey Road, one of the Grey Roads at Sambro, is in similar situation, and Atlantic View Drive. The Chebucto Headlight Road is a particular problem, of course, because it is the road which leads to the federal lighthouse, and the question about divestiture, whether or not, in fact, this road is, as part of the lighthouse, will be going to the province, will it be going to the municipality? It's unclear. Now, some of these streets, there is perhaps a problem because there is a lack of coordination between the municipal and provincial jurisdictions in the granting of permits. I know one of the things is there is a form of permit which the Department of Transportation needs to grant as well for the location of, I'm sorry, what's it called? It's an access permit, okay. And I know that the department would very much like to see some coordinated approach to that, because they're finding that municipalities will grant building permits where it's impossible for the province to grant an access permit. And that may be the root of some of the problem. That may be some of the Chebucto Head Light problem as well, but be that as it may, the houses are there. They have been there for some 40 years now, and those houses have in fact those households have depended upon that road. So they have a question as to what is going to happen. The municipality says they will not take on that road in that condition. They're still living there. At West Pennant as well, I don't think there's any question about this one, but I feel obliged to mention it. The Department of Transportation very promptly replaced the railings on the bridge at West Pennant some 3 years ago. Unfortunately, within 3 weeks, the same Department of Transportation plowed the railings right back off again, and that was 3 years ago. And yeah, that would be the wing plow. So I feel it necessary to register that. Unfortunately, that work does need to be repeated. The main question, I guess, that I would have is, what exactly is to be happening? Is there a deadline? Is there a point at which the residents of the outlying areas of Halifax Atlantic can expect that the negotiations will either be concluded about Capital District transportation, or in fact there will be a proper negotiation, quite simply, of the road's responsibilities? We don't necessarily have to go the whole hog and have this transportation authority, but we do need, at least in the interim, for there to be some review of the responsibilities, and somebody needs to take them on at this point. My question would be, is there a cutoff point at which, if there are no conclusions reached with Capital District Transportation Authority, there will at least be some conclusions reached with regard to the many outlying roads of Halifax and Halifax Atlantic?
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
Yes, Madam Chair, that is an excellent question, and if my voice holds up, I'll try and give you an adequate answer. The Capital Transportation Authority Act, which is still on the order paper, is not going to progress. It's going to eventually die there, and that to some extent is unfortunate, because it would resolve the problems that the member so rightfully brings to the House this morning. HRM. At the present time, has a standard of maintenance that is winter maintenance that is different to that of the Department of Transportation. It is actually a higher standard than we have. When we had some discussions with HRM with regard to the transfer of the roads, the complete road package within the HRM perimeter, it was based on certain revenues that would become available to HRM, primarily from the bridges. So to be a quid pro quo. They were basing the transfer of those roads that the province had to HRM based on the costs of the HRM maintenance schedule rather than the provincial. So there was a deficit, and there was a bit of an argument, obviously, as to what the eventual cost would be. But nevertheless, we were moving in that direction, which would be to the advantage not only to this honourable member, but to several members in the House who presently share, who have the roads in their ridings shared between municipal responsibility and provincial responsibility. It's nothing worse than getting a call about a road that the province is not looking after, and then finding out that we don't have to look after it anyway. It belongs to HRM. we know which roads are which, but unfortunately, there's no order to them. In other words, you can't say, well, in this particular area, they're all provincial. Over here, they're all HRM. It doesn't work that way. They're all scrambled together. And that makes people really mad because they see a snowplow go whistling by to plow a road down there, and they go right by maybe 2 or 3 roads here that are the HRM's responsibility. And they say, well, why can't the plow stop and do our roads? And it makes perfect common sense. I'm happy to tell you that the talks have not broken down. They're continuing, and we would hope to get a resolution fairly shortly. But however, when I say that, we probably do it a chunk at a time now, rather than doing the whole enchilada, and so it's going to take a little bit longer than it would have under the act that we had proposed. But I can advise the honourable member that we recognize that there's a problem. HRM recognizes there's a problem. We're both determined that we're going to work something out, and we're moving in that direction.
The honourable member from Halifax Atlantic.
Thank you very much, Minister, and it makes a lot of sense to me that it be done, I assume, a geographical chunk at a time, and that way we can, get things moving, and I'm very pleased to hear that, and I would hope that, those chunks can be worked out within the next year or so that we can look at, as I say, it's not only winter maintenance, it's also, the grading and the dust, I guess it is, that mounts the sides of the guardrails here and there, that sort of thing. I know that my colleague beside me is very, very anxious to speak to you as well, so perhaps I ought to leave off here. But I do have one very quick question, and it's this. It's around ferry landings. It's around ferries, public ferries throughout the province. Does the Department of Transportation have a policy of maintaining ferry landings, of subsidizing ferries, or of not doing so at this point anywhere within the province? What is the status of ferry transportation in the province?
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
I presume the honourable member is speaking about ferries run by the Department of Transportation. We do subsidize them, and it's a very costly business. Actually, I think it's $5 million a year that the ferries cost. 5.5, and we get back about $1 million.
It costs about 6.5. We get back about $1 million.
Oh, okay. It costs about $6.5 million for the ferry services. We get back about $5 million from the public that use the ferry, so it's quite expensive. The maintenance of the docking facilities essentially belongs to the Department of Transportation, and we do indeed maintain them. But there are some, like for instance, the tent hook. Yeah, we don't own the.
We don't own all the wharves.
We don't own all the wharves, but however, the ones that we do own, we maintain and provide the capital construction costs when needed.
The honourable member from Pictou West.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to go back to the minister and ask about, or we were discussing earlier in the morning about the fairness of allocation of work around the province and into different ridings. And I'm just like to ask about your capital spending riding by riding. Is it allocated on a proportional basis according to the number of roads that are in the constituency, or is it allocated by constituency per se? What is the criteria? And is it possible, Mr. Minister, you could table with the House here the capital spending that's going to be done in each of the ridings in Nova Scotia this year?
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
Madam Chair, that's a very good question that the honourable member has brought forward, and it's one that's asked, I think, every year. And I hope I can give perhaps a better answer than I gave last year. First of all, our number one allocation of funding is to the 100 series highways. The reason for that is because our 100 series highways are in good condition. And these are the sinews that that our imports and exports from the province depend on. We don't have trains anymore. Everything practically travels by truck, and those trucks essentially travel on the 100 series highways. So that the money is allocated not by riding, but they're allocated by highways. The 100 series highways, which take about 45 million.
That's correct.
About 45 million of our capital budget every year goes to the 100 series highways, and that's why our 100 series highways are in good shape, and they'll continue to receive that kind of attention. The balance of the money then goes onto secondary roads. The money for secondary roads under the capital program are not allocated by district. They are allocated according to the priority that the department arrives at by looking at all the districts' recommendation that come into the department, and so we can't say, okay, to the honourable member from, for instance, Halifax Atlantic, your share of the pot of capital this year is $5 million, and somebody else is $3 million. It depends on what comes in from the districts and the allocation by the Department of Transportation Central.
Is it possible, Mr. Speaker, or Mr. Minister, to table with this House the tenders that will be done in Nova Scotia this year, regardless of which ridings they're in, just on the whole province as a whole?
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
Yes, Madam Chair, I can't do that until the end of the fiscal year. I can give the capital expenditures by writing at the end of the fiscal year. Yes, I can do that. But I can tell you, tell the honourable member that at the present time, the amount of money that we will have is dependent on the budget, and our budget, remember, is dependent on certain funding coming in from the federal government. So we're not exactly certain as to the amount of money that we will have for capital this year. We know what we've programmed to expend. And the funding that I expect the Minister of Finance to give to the Department of Transportation. But however, there is things that can happen that can affect that.
Honourable Member from Pictou West.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to switch topics now and go to another issue. I understand at the present time there's a study being done by your department, by a number of, across a number of other government departments. It's called the Steering Committee for the Supply and Distribution Management Review. And I understand that this committee, made up of a number of government departments, including the Department of Transportation, has put out a request for proposals to look at warehouse and distribution facilities and looking at streamlining and alternate service approaches. If I might quote from my information here, it's consolidation, streamlining, alternate service approaches, and looking at a number of issues. I wonder, Mr. Minister, if you could give us an update on that committee, how they're getting along, what specific services are being reviewed by the committee, what implications that might have on your present employees, your present government department employees, and when this report should be finished.
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
Well, I'd like to say that's a good question, but in point of fact, what I'm going to have to say to the honourable member is that I'll get him a status report on that committee. I do not know personally a great deal about the committee. My department is a part of that committee. I am not. I'll have to turn to Mr. Delaney for a moment. The committee is just being established, as I understand, isn't it?
Well, certainly our department is participating in the committee. They're looking at all inventories and storage, whatever. But his questions are a little premature anyway until the study's done.
Yeah, I think the committee is just getting up and running, Madam Chair. It's a committee that's looking at procurement, it's looking at warehousing, it's looking at inventory, and it is responsibility is going to be shared among several departments, and I don't know all the departments, to be quite honest, but I can get the honourable member a status report on that committee, and if they have established a date when their report must be in by, I'll certainly include that in the status report.
Member from Pictou West.
Thank you, or Madam Chair. I do understand from there's some concern amongst the Nova Scotia Government Employees Union that they're, what really is being done here. They're asking to look at all departments and reviewing whether things can be done more efficiently or things can be done better. And like I said, it references alternate service approaches. So that immediately raises questions. Does that mean privatization? Does that ask if some government employees will lose their job if it's contracted out to a private company? And as you know, Mr. Minister, under the contract that the Nova Scotia Government Employees Union have signed, that there's a section called the Quality Public Service Protection Plan, the 5-point plan that protects civil servants from losing jobs to due to contracting out. So I guess I just ask that caution be exercised, and that and while we're always looking for things to be done more efficiently, that there is some obligation to protect the workers that are there at the present time. I do understand also it's contracted out the study that's being done to Grant Thornton, and they're actually conducting the study on behalf of the steering committee, and then they'll be reporting back to the committee, and from there the committee will be making recommendations to you or to government. So again, I guess I just raise it as a precautionary measure to make sure that it's not that jobs in the Department of Transportation and Public Works are not lost to the private sector.
Point of order, the honourable member from Preston.
Lost quorum again?
We don't. We don't have to hold quorum right now. No, we don't.
In committee of the whole, we have to hold?
No. Point of order, honourable. No, there has been a.
Yes.
There's a quorum now? Thank you. The honourable member from Pictou West.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to turn to another issue, if I could, in the public accounts for 2003-2004, the Blue Book on page 197, if we could refer to that. In the list of expenditures for the department, there's a number of payouts to various towns in Nova Scotia. You'll see on page 197 the town of Amherst, town of Antigonish, Kentville, Port Hawkesbury, Windsor, Yarmouth, and so on. There's a number of expenditures there for various amounts, ranging from $5,000 right up to more than $200,000. Can you share with us, Mr. Minister, what those expenditures are and why such a variance? Can you just tell us what those expenditures are for?
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
Yes, Madam Chair. The expenditures are primarily for cost sharing on roads, for utilities, road repairs, utilities, taxes, cost sharing of street upgrade, those kinds of things. They're just the routine business of the province doing jobs. Beg your pardon, the municipality doing jobs and providing services to the department. If there's a particular item there that he wants further on, I can certainly provide it to him.
The honourable member from Pictou West.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Minister is quite familiar, I'm sure, with the town of Windsor $206,178, certainly the very largest account of any of the towns that are mentioned here. Can you tell us what that expenditure was for?
Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
Yes, Madam Chair, there was a new school built, the Avonview High School, which is, if you're familiar with Windsor, it's back to the edge of the municipality, and the only access to it was a road that terminated at the hospital. They had to extend that road to the high school, and it's the only access road and the only way that you can actually get to that particular piece of property.
The honourable member from Pictou West.
Well, I guess I'm coming around to the government's policy on cost sharing with towns, and certainly Windsor and Port Hawkesbury and Stellarton, Bridgewater. Some towns have done very well under this policy, but obviously not all towns are here. Is there a provincial policy on cost sharing on roads that go through towns, that maybe a provincial road that goes through a town or village? If it's in the municipality, then it's looked after by the province, but when it's in a separate municipal unit called a town, is there cost sharing with towns on a provincial road?
The honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
We have a policy now where we do not cost share on roads through towns. We cost share on bridges. We have individual agreements, I understand, with I think every town probably in the province for bridges, but not for roads. In this particular case, it was a road for access to a school property. It's a if you like, a long laneway, but it's actually a road that it doesn't feed any other particular institution except for the school.
Honourable member from Hants.
And it was part of the school contract.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think you indicate when I first asked you this a couple minutes ago that some of this was cost sharing. Was that cost sharing for roads? And I guess the reason I'm asking in particular, as you know, I come from Pictou West, and the town of Pictou has a road that they feel should be cost shared. If there is a policy in the province that you cost share with some towns, then it too should be cost shared. And it's a provincial road, goes right through the town, and so are some of these expenditures for cost sharing of roads in other towns?
The honourable Minister of Transportation and Public
Chair,
Works.
the answer is no. We do not cost share on town roads. We do not cost share.
The honourable member from Pictou West.
How much time do I have left, Madam Chair?
You have 3 minutes. Two minutes.
Well, another issue I want to raise is that I guess it's come to my attention that there's some Department of Transportation vehicles, like winter equipment vehicles, that are having some problems with weight, with front axles being too heavy. The weight limits are over the weight they should be, and they're not legal or not able to do the job they should be on the snow plows and sanding equipment, and could be a dangerous situation. And many of the trucks that are out there have been overweight. They've been weighed and they're more than they should be. The cost replacement on that can be very, very expensive. There's dozens of winter vehicles out there, and I understand the manufacturer has been contacted, but somebody's got to ante up for the cost of repairing these vehicles. They're either dangerous because they're overweight, or there's quite an expense here to repair them. So my question is, how did this come to be, and who's going to pay for the cost to modify these front axles?
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
We're going to have to do it, Madam Chair, and we're going to have to pay for it. The problem is with the front axles, as I understand it.
That's correct.
With the front axles, the cost of the remediation for the problem, I don't know. And do you have a number?
We don't have a number. We're just reviewing the problem at the moment.
We're just reviewing the problem at the moment. We do not have a substantive number that I can pass on to the honourable member.
The Honourable member from Pictou West.
Well, it could be a whole lot of money. It could be quite expensive. I don't know, there's dozens of vehicles out there. It's going to cost thousands, maybe $1 million or more. I don't know. But is that money going to come from within the department, or is it, are you going to go back after the manufacturer, or who's going to pay for it? Is it going to cost jobs, or is it going to cost other equipment in the province?
Time allotted has expired. The minister can do his answer. Thank you.
The fault doesn't lie with the manufacturer of the truck. It's the equipment that we add onto the truck after we purchase the chassis. We still do, I presume, the wings and the plows and the front plows, etc. out at Miller Lake. And so it's a modification that will be probably done out there, and that work that was done out there contributed to the additional weight on the front axle.
The honourable member from Cape Breton West.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few questions for the minister here. Shouldn't be too difficult for the minister, because I know he's been on top of a number of issues in my constituency, and on behalf of the residents in Cape Breton West, we certainly like to extend our appreciation in that regard. As the minister may be aware, I attended a meeting at Marion Bridge last evening with some members of his staff, and there are some pockets of concern, certainly in Cape Breton West. The Marion Bridge Highway, I think, is a name that I understand the minister raised yesterday during his opening remarks, and we certainly appreciate being on the radar screen. Some residents have suggested a rather novel way that the minister might be able to generate some additional revenue for his department to be able to fix the roads, and that is that they start charging for a navigator's license. Because some of the roads are so bad, you really need to have a navigator's license to be able to negotiate some of the bumps and the holes and the ruts and everything else on the Marion Bridge Highway. But that having been said, the tenders have been called for the first section, and that's certainly appreciated, and that point was very well made last evening. However, some of the senior residents in the community, actually close to 150 that attended, were pretty much unanimous in the query as to why they started on the Marion Bridge end, which is not as bad as the Sydney end of the Marion Bridge Highway, which is absolutely unbearable. You cannot drive any more than 200 feet on one side of the road at any particular point in time for almost a 5-kilometer stretch. So my question to the minister is there any plan, or is there any hope at all of accelerating the tender call for the next section of that particular piece of highway to deal with the most severe state of the Marion Bridge Highway, which is commonly referred to as Highway 327?
Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
Yes, Madam Chair. We're doing approximately 4 kilometers, I believe, in Marion Bridge, and there is another section that we'll be taking a look at later on in the year, Madam Chair, but I can't make any commitment as to whether or not it will be tendered this year or whether it'll be in a later tendering process.
Honourable member from Cape Breton West.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the minister for that comment. I know that the minister has received considerable correspondence from the residents in that area, and it's quite vital, because one of the points that I made last evening was the fact that the department has ramped up its budget from approximately $43 million from 6 years ago to 142.2, I believe, this year. And certainly that helps to deal with the highway deficit. I know that the Blackbrook Bridge, all indications are that will be completed this year. I hope it will. It's been, I think, 3, maybe 4 years in the making, and I would ask for some confirmation on that. It will be, yes, okay, that's great news. As well, I'm not sure about the John Joe Gillis Bridge on North Side East Bay. I believe there was some remedial work done there last year just to deal with the collapsing of that particular bridge, and maybe perhaps moving the Bailey Bridge from Leach's Creek over to that area until a new bridge was built. So if the minister could give us some indication as what the status of that is.
Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
Yes, that, Madam Chair, is a panel bridge, which is a temporary bridge, but certainly panel bridges are to some extent perfectly satisfactory to meet most traffic conditions. There will be a permanent structure put in place to replace that panel bridge. But again, Madam Chair, I'm unable to give the member reassurance that it will be done this year. In fact, I'm pretty sure it probably won't be. Possibly next year or the year after, somewhere in that area, we can look at taking out the panel bridge and putting in a permanent structure.
The honourable member from Cape Breton West.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At least I can tell residents, that not to get their hopes up if they see some remedial interim work there, that at least they'll know. And that's one thing I have to say, and I have to compliment the residents in Cape Breton West of all 33 communities. They may not be happy with your answer, but at least if you give them a straight answer, they'll appreciate it. And that's the most important thing. I know a few years ago, when I asked the minister about the Marion Bridge Highway, he was very candid and said the answer was no, there would be no tenders. That was in the year 2000. Well, it's 5 years later, but at least, we're making progress. It's not quite as fast as we'd like, but at least we're getting there. Another issue actually there are two other issues of concern. One is a similar type highway, and it's one I know that senior staff in this department is very familiar with, and that is the Manitou Highway. This winter, for example, it was the first year that the department opted to go with privatization of snow plowing and ice removal services. And that did not work out well. In fact, after a series of storms, and one large storm had occurred, or heavy storm had occurred, the snow removal servicing was so inadequate compared to what the department staff would do, that after this particular storm, I believe there were 4, perhaps 5 Department of Transportation snow removal vehicles and trucks and plows that had to go out for a 2-day period just to bring the roads through Manitou, Bateston, Balleen, Little Lorraine, and part of the Myra Gut area back up to an acceptable standard. So I would ask the minister, number one, it's the plan to continue with the privatized service, and if so, is what action is going to be taken to ensure the same level or the quality of service that the department has always been noted for providing in that area. And also too, that road, I'm almost afraid to say, because if you say how bad the road is in one community, the residents in another community will say, well, you're not as concerned about ours. But it is bad. It's so bad that there are sections that you're actually driving on the gravel because there's no asphalt there. And the experts within your department, I'm sure, can make that professional advice to the minister, through you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome to the chair. And also the Lewisburg Highway, which is the second issue I wanted to raise. And that is because it is referred to as a parkway. It is the main thoroughfare, the main access to the fortress of Lewisburg. And that is the single most effective marketing economic driver that we have on that side of the island at this point, certainly from a tourism point of view. And we have approximately 140,000 visitors visit that site in a 3-month period every year, notwithstanding the fact that it's a very active fishing town, the town of Louisbourg, which encompasses the fortress of Louisbourg, and all the other economic and social factors that are applied. So if we could get some sense of what really is the long-term plan for the Louisbourg Highway. I know I've written to my federal counterparts on a number of occasions over the last several years, and to date I have actually 3 pieces of correspondence, and to date I have not received a response to one of them. But at least I will concur that through your department, Mr. Minister, through you, Mr. Chair, you've been very quick to respond, albeit that residents don't always agree with the response. At least they're kept up to date. And so I bring those additional 2 matters to the table here today, and perhaps if the minister could give us some sense of what the plan is.
Thank you, Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
Mr. Chairman, the Louisbourg Highway is a highway that's of importance to the tourism industry. I would suggest probably as the Cabot Trail. Those 2 highways are extremely important to the tourism industry in Nova Scotia, and certainly the traffic on the Louisbourg Highway is steady year after year, and we recognize the fact that we are going to have to do some considerable work on that highway. Again, Mr. Chairman, unfortunately I can't say when that will happen, but I will take it under advisement, and I'll deliver to the honourable member perhaps later in the year an update on when we expect to do some work on that highway. It would be very, very nice, Mr. Chairman, if we could get the federal government to cost share on those 2 particular highways, the Cabot Trail and the road, Sydney Louisbourg Road, because both lead really to federal tourist attractions of considerable importance, not only to Nova Scotia but to all Canadians. Certainly, any with a sense of history that visit Nova Scotia take in Louisbourg as part of their travel itinerary in the province. With regard to the alternate service delivery and the remarks that the honourable member brought forward with respect to snow clearance during a storm, I think the storm that he was referring to was a particularly bad one that affected all of Nova Scotia, and was one in which a number of our local and provincial plows had difficulty accommodating the amount of the snowfall, and the non-government contractors also had the same difficulty. I would be interested to learn from the honourable member exactly what this particular contractor was using for equipment, and how big the area was that was affected by the supposed lack of attention. To the best of my knowledge, those who are involved as private contractors under alternate service delivery for winter operations have been providing a service that is equivalent to what we provide with the provincial employees. Certainly, there's room for both. We intend to continue with alternate service delivery, but we do not intend to cause any disruption to our labor force. In fact, as I pointed out in my opening remarks, our labor force is increasing by approximately 100 people this construction year, Mr. Chairman. So I look forward to receiving additional details from the honourable member.
Thank you, Minister. The honourable member for Cape Breton West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe the center of concern in this particular case with this particular contractor, who I know quite well, and actually he's a very good friend of mine, and we've done business over the years, and I have great respect for his ability. But I believe the issue is the fact that the equipment that he had used for snow removal and the like was not as heavy as the department's equipment. I'm not much of an expert at heavy equipment, only to suggest that what I've been advised is that his equipment is very light, and when it would hit some of these ruts and bumps, particularly in the Manitou Highway, because you could drive over a Volkswagen there and not even know you drove over it, some of the bumps that are there. But that seems to be the issue of concern. His equipment is not as heavy duty as the department's. But I also wanted to focus on a couple other areas. Certainly, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the fact that the minister was good enough to respond to the concern on the Eskasoni Highway, calling for 6.9 kilometers earlier this year. That was in desperate shape. That's up in the reserve area of Eskasoni, the community of Eskasoni. And another point that was raised last evening, and it is a very good point, and I believe the minister and the department has, or at least is attempting to address this particular concern. And that is, and it's a point I've raised in this House on a number of occasions, and that is this policy position of a previous government to depopulate rural Nova Scotia. And because of that, there has been a tremendous trickle-down effect on all these rural communities in terms of commitment to provide the resources to maintain the infrastructure at a level that was acceptable prior to that period of time. And I believe we see that, for example, in the Marion Bridge area, and the Grand Myra area, and the Gab-Bruce communities, and so on, where you see schools close, where you see gas stations close, where you see a lot of the small corner stores closed. And that is because, by design, the policy was adopted to depopulate rural Nova Scotia. And it's a point that's extremely vital. Given the fact that 30 out of 52 constituencies in this province are rural, I would think that this would have a tremendous impact on all members of this House, one way or the other. And the policy statement states that the government's designing to, quote, have more efficient government by reducing artificial distinctions between cities or towns and rural municipalities, reducing the incentive to build outside cities and towns, which impose long-term servicing costs. So obviously, the policy decision has been made within government to abandon rural Nova Scotia by that policy document. And in that context, I think it's important to recognize that at least the minister, by fighting to get the budget from 43 million up to 142 million, that will start to address the highway deficit. That point was very well made by Ms. Bailey from the Department of Transportation and Public Works at a public meeting last evening, and by a number of residents as well. So I thought, in fairness, if we're going to be quick to criticize, we should be quick to credit the government for doing what's right. And, well, yes, it was one that I certainly had some scars with on a previous day. There's no two ways about it. But I'm back and they're gone. The issue being that the minister is doing what I think is right to help to stabilize the lifeline in rural Nova Scotia. by pouring money into these communities that need support. If that policy document or that policy positioning had continued any further, if you think it's bad in Digby, Annapolis, where the member there complains about the forgotten people, can you imagine what it would be like in another 10 years' time? So my plea to the minister is, if he would go back to his cabinet colleagues and ramp that budget up at least another $40 to $50 million within the next year to 2 years, and maybe even if you have to go for additional appropriations, I think it would yield tremendous benefits for all Nova Scotians, particularly on the argument of rural economic development, because they are our lifeline. All these small and mom and pop businesses along these scenic coastal routes, whether it be the Sunrise Trail or whether it's the 107, whether it's down through Annapolis Valley, you know, it's absolutely just panoramic when you drive down through Kentville and Paradise and Middleton, all those areas, Lawrencetown. And I lived there for 2 years, and it was just, I couldn't wait to have a day off from survey school so I could drive up the North Mountain or the South Mountain. Just, there's so many beautiful areas to go, but these roads are in tough shape as well. And they've been abandoned. I hate to say it, but they were abandoned by the Liberal government of the day. And it was put in policy and legislative form. And something has to be done. Otherwise, we're going to see a continual deterioration of rural Nova Scotia. And at least the minister in this department, I know it's being done in other departments, is doing something to turn that around. And aside, party politics aside, credit has to be given where credit is due. And so the government has to be recognized for that, and this minister has to be recognized for that. Because if it's not done, you're going to see a continual deterioration. Since that policy document was adopted in legislative form, 13 out of 18 counties, municipalities, has seen a decline in their population. 5 out of 9 urban cores have seen a decline in their population. And at the continued rate, it will get even worse, whether it be in Colchester, Kings County, down in Digby, Annapolis, Cape Breton, Victoria, right across the board. You cannot continue to rob Peter to pay Paul, because that's what Nova Scotia was built on, and that is rural Nova Scotia, rural economic development. It's a lifeline. And yes, that's not to detract from the urban cores. So I wanted to put that there. The minister has also clarified the point about the Capital Transportation Authority and the fact that that piece of legislation won't be coming back this session. And that's perhaps good, because it'll give everybody an opportunity to reflect on that. So I don't want to appear to be as if the minister is getting an easy ride here, because there's still a lot of issues to be addressed. But I do believe, in all fairness, because I've seen it in Tory-held ridings, NDP-held ridings, Liberal-held ridings, independent ridings, or what have you. Everyone is being treated fairly. That, Mr. Speaker, will conclude my comments for today, and I would encourage the minister again to go back after his cabinet colleagues.
Thank you. Does the minister want to respond to that? Minister of Transportation, Public.
I'd be delighted to respond to that, Mr. Chairman, because indeed I think all members of the House now are on side with regard to the fact that roads are important, that roads are an economic generator, that they're important not only to rural Nova Scotia, but also for the more urban areas of the province as well. And Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, we do have to have more money and more interest from the federal government, in particular, to the importance of maintenance and reconstruction of our highway infrastructure. So, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, certainly as far as I'm concerned, I'll do my best to encourage my colleagues to give me more money, but I also recognize the fact that you can't just say, we're going to take $100 million from health, or I take $100 million from education. Some way must be found to get an injection of additional funding into the highway system without affecting the delivery of those other services which the public expect the province to provide. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I'll recognize the honourable member for Digby Annapolis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Minister. I would like to tell you, Mr. Minister, that I have great respect for you. I don't envy your job one bit with 23,000 kilometres of road to look after, 4,100 bridges in this province. Your speech last night, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed listening to you. You're a great speaker. But there's a few. I'm not after a thing.
Not going to get any patients, no. You're sitting in no row.
But there was a few things I wanted to ask you about in the speech, and one was that you said approximately 60% of people from somewhere said that they were very satisfied with the road conditions. Could you tell me where that survey was done and how it was done and who with?
Thank you. The Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
It was a province-wide survey. It was conducted by an independent company, and I'll come to that in a moment. But we do that annually, every year for the past, I don't know how many years, Martin, how long? About 4 or 5 years, we've been doing an annual assessment of how the public perceives our particular part of providing a government service. And I'm just trying to see who actually did the survey. The survey cost us $30,000. I can see that on the briefing note, and but anyway, it was done by a polling service outside of government, and 63% of the persons surveyed said that they are satisfied with our highway system, and that's the highest level of satisfaction that we've had since we started polling. It's increased from, I believe it was 55% last year. Something in the order of about 55% last year. So generally speaking, the public is becoming more satisfied with our service to the traveling public. Admittedly, we have a long way to go, but however, I do believe that the majority of the people consider that we are improving and that we are trying our best to meet their desires and aspirations insofar as their roads are concerned.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The member for Digby Annapolis.
Just seems like the survey that I do in my area, that seems to be the figure that says, you know, that especially the secondary roads in that riding, that's pretty much the figure that I have that says that it's not up to par. So it's just the opposite of what I've been hearing. That was the only reason I asked that. You're getting a little hoarse, Mr. Minister. I won't keep you too long. You mentioned that the gas tax was all put into the gasoline, or into the roads, the tax from the gasoline. Does that include the HST? How does that work?
Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
No, it does not include the taxes. It's just the per litre cost of the gasoline.
Thank you, Minister. The member for Digby, Annapolis.
I also picked something else out of your comments last night, your speech, and it was about drivers' inattention on the highways. I couldn't agree with you more. I believe that I don't believe cars kill people. I believe the people that drive them is probably the biggest problems, kind of like the guns. Guns don't kill people, people kill people. And the inattention on the highway, I believe, is a big factor. You spoke about the 100 series highways and the twinning of them out of the city, the twinning east of here. But the 101 from Digby to Annapolis, you never mentioned it. We're not looking for twinning that way. We're just kind of looking for a single one. We'd be happy after 30 years down there trying to get one. You spoke about the traffic, increased traffic would bring a road up on the priority list. We have an incident down there now in one of the biggest fisheries in Nova Scotia, probably the biggest economic generator of this province down in that corner of the province, that we've just lost a ferry boat to our markets of the United States, where 70% of that product goes. We're being told now that all that fish and lobster is going to be trucked from the southwest area up through that #1 highway, starting right away, to come to the Digby ferry to cross. I don't know just how many trucks went across that Fundy Prince. I could soon find out, but I never, but I will. That's going to be a lot of extra traffic coming up through that village where that #1 highway is, where now there's been 2 tractor-trailer truck accidents just this past month or so. And it's going to get worse. And I hear it every day. I get calls steady from people, and it's driving me nuts too. So if you think I'm driving you nuts with it, well, I'm just echoing the nuts it's driving me. Why can't, if this traffic's going to increase like that because of the lack of that other ferry, why can't this highway be put higher up on the priority list for that area?
Thank you, Member. The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
Mr. Chairman, the honourable member is certainly correct when he says that he's brought this to the attention of government on a consistent basis, because he certainly has. The section between Digby and Weymouth is considered to be a part of the 101, but it is not a controlled access highway. We are in the process, Mr. Chairman, of acquiring the right-of-way between where the present 101 series highway terminates and goes on to what is essentially the old #1 highway up to Digby. We now have, I think, that transportation corridor now we own.
No, but we're protecting areas that are under development already.
But no, we don't own it completely. But we do have pieces of that we own, and we're in the business of acquiring the remainder. That particular stretch of highway is a part of the national highway system. It will be, when it's built, will be cost shared with the federal government, and will require an agreement from the federal government to do the construction. At the present time, we have an agreement in principle to extend the twinning of the 101, as you're probably aware, to Colebrook. The other section, the next section that will probably be dealt with is the closure of that gap between Digby and Weymouth. but there is no tentative agreement or agreement in principle that will be done. But however, it would be logical that would be the next section, because the section from Colebrook further down, going down towards Digby, the traffic there does not necessarily warrant twinning, but and that particular piece between Digby and Weymouth would just be a normal section of the 101, similar to the section that runs from Weymouth down to Yarmouth, just a single double lane highway.
Thank you, Minister. The member for Digby Annapolis.
Thank you. I would like to, we have 512 kilometers of road in our riding, and I'd say approximately half of them roads are dirt roads. This past few years, it seems like they haven't put very good quality gravel on them. And I know you do have a policy, the department has, of what kind of gravel goes on those roads. What kind of provincial inspection is done to these roads, on these dirt roads, to see the quality of gravel that goes on them?
Thank you, member. The honourable minister.
Yeah, so when the tender is issued, there are specifications that they must meet. The specifications for the gravel. There have been instances where gravel has been second class and not acceptable, and the pits have been closed for use by contractors for Department of Transportation requirements. I would like to do a long dissertation on pits and quarries, but I won't. But one of our difficulties in this province, quite honestly, is maintaining our sources of gravel. It's not inexhaustible by any means, and certainly it's more difficult now to open a gravel pit than it used to be, say 20 years ago. So we're more or less stuck with the gravel pits that we presently have and the exploitation of those particular deposits.
Thank you, Minister. The member for Digby Annapolis.
I've had it brought to my attention a lot, and I've seen it personally too. When road graders grade gravel roads, why do they grade them off into the ditches? I mean, common sense would tell me to grade them towards the center. We have dirt roads down there over the past 4 or 5 years that hasn't been ditched. And they're completely filled with the grading being done. The gravel ditches? The gravel ditches, or the mud ditches, whatever's on the road. It's more mud than gravel. But it seems to me, does the department have, what kind of training does the department have for these people who do this to the roads? It seems to be such a waste, and a waste of time, a waste of money. I mean, it just makes common sense that would be graded to the center and crowned. Is there some kind of training this department has for road graders of this province?
Thank you, member. The Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. All our equipment operators are trained, and they must meet certain certification standards that we have established within the department. The honourable member refers to dirt roads. In reality, the only dirt roads I think that we have are the K-class roads and most of those are gravelled as well. We would hope that our roads that come under our jurisdiction are gravel roads, and certainly it doesn't pay us to have the grader come along and put the gravel into ditches. That's not a very good use of the resource that we have and the investment that we have in the road. It does happen in the winter times, though, when a plow comes along and the gravel ends up in the ditch and then has to be dug out in the spring. If there's a particular road down there that is not being properly crowned, I'd like to find out about it, because quite honestly, that should not be occurring. The road should be crowned. Because that's just simply the way that you grade a road.
Thank you, Minister. The member for Digby Annapolis.
I could certainly get you the name of all of them, Mr. Minister. I won't get into the alders.
Come on.
But that loose gravel in the ditches makes a great bed for alders. It does. They grow big down there. They're still there, but I would like to, I know we've had one road down there. We've had one road that's been contracted out, the Weymouth Mills Road. And the people want to thank you very, very much for that. They've been after that road. It's been broken up for years. But also on Long Island, there's been a road there that hasn't been done for 50 years, and it's been two-thirds done now in the past 2 years. I believe there's 5 or 6 kilometers left of it. The people are wondering down there if that, it's highly used by the tourist trade there too for the whale watching. And they're just wondering if that Long Island, the 5 or 6 kilometers, was going to be finished any time before this winter.
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
Mr. Chairman, I know that road quite well. I've traveled it several times, and it certainly is a road with a lot of twists and turns, if I may put it that way. It's an interesting driving experience. The road will be paved. The completion of the paving to the end. I can't guarantee it'll be done this year. In fact, I doubt that it will be, but I would suggest to him that it'll probably be done next year. It's certainly way up high on the priority list, because there is only one road there in reality on the island, and it is the only way that you can get back to the ferry, back to the mainland. So it is high on the priority list, and I would suggest that if we don't get tenders out this year, that we'll certainly get them out next year.
Thank you, Minister. The member for Digby Annapolis.
They waited quite a few years for that road to be fixed, and also the Weymouth Mills Road. Why couldn't, I know it's a money problem. You haven't got to stand up and say there's no money. Why couldn't the inner half of Weymouth Mills be started this year, the 5 kilometers, and then the other 5 kilometers put on Long Island, and that would finish Long Island, and the rest of Weymouth Mills be done in another sector next year? Is something like that possible? Because the Long Island was done in three sections too. So I think the people in Weymouth Mills would go along with that if that was possible.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. What the honourable member is suggesting is possible, but however, the tender has already been let for that particular road, and to cancel that tender involves all kinds of things, a reassessment and additional costs. So we can't do it at this stage of the game. But as I say, you have a commitment personally from me that the road on Long Island will be completed. As I say, I would like to be able to say it'll be done this year, but I doubt that, to be quite honest. But however, next year it's there. It'll be done.
Thank you, Minister. The Honourable Member for Digby Annapolis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Thank you, Chair. I'll turn the rest of my time over to my colleague from Preston.
Recognize the Honourable Member for Preston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have some specific questions to ask the minister about roads in my area, and some of I've corresponded with him already on, and hopefully he's familiar with them. I'm sure he is. There's the section of the Mineville Road between the number 7 highway, 107 highway, and the Candy Mountain Road is in a very deplorable condition. And I know you spent some RIM money on it here 3 or 4 years ago, which helped substantially. But the road is breaking up. There was some very serious potholes in it, which your department, when they discovered they were very quick to respond, and I'll give them credit for that, to get them at least cold patched this spring when they were aware of them. And there was some damage done to vehicles and by the potholes and everything there, as the minister is probably well aware. I was just wondering if there's any possibility of getting that road repaved this year, or at least some RIM money spent on it so it's passable. And the traffic in that area is growing more and more and more as they build more houses in the area. And typically it's a well-traveled road, and it's one of the only accesses to the 107 from Lawrencetown up through and in through Mineville to the 107.
Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Mr. Chairman, the Mineville Road, and this is the road that connects onto the Candy, whatever it is, road, and there's a bridge, I understand, on the Candy Road. Boy. There's a very good opportunity for the Mineville Road to be done this year, as will the Candy Mountain Road. The Candy Mountain Road, is it? And there's a bridge there that also has to be replaced, as I understand it. And because the bridge has to be replaced, we can't use trucks to carry the asphalt and the gravel to do the section of Candy Mountain Road. So we have a bit of a conundrum there, which comes first, the bridge or the road, and in that particular case, the bridge is going to have to come first. Insofar as the Mineville Road is concerned, I believe we'll probably do that this year.
Thank you, Minister. The Honourable Member for Preston.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. I really appreciate that answer, and the residents of the community will be very pleased if indeed that you can manage to get the Mineville Road particular done. And the bridge you talk about in the Candy Mountain Road, and you actually answered one of the questions I was going to just ask, but it's a single-lane bridge, as you're aware. You did some work on it here a few years ago, and was to a point it deteriorated so bad that fire trucks couldn't even get across it. And the department did fix it to the point that service vehicles and fire trucks could get across, and that was greatly appreciated at the time. And it's the only entrance to that particular community. Again, it's a community that's growing rapidly, new subdivisions going in, and fortunately, new subdivisions now are paved, so we don't have to worry about those ones anymore, and that's a bonus. The other one that you're very familiar with, this one, and I know what your answer is going to be, but I have to ask the question, the O'Connell Drive, where it goes from the school to the number 7 highway. Is there any way we can get that paved without having to charge the residents on the road for that short section? I know it should have been paved when the school was built, and unfortunately, it wasn't. I don't think anyone realized at the time how many students would go there, how many school buses are there. And there's even some concern that the bus drivers may, because the buses ride reasonably rough and those the school buses aren't nicest things to ride in, may, and we haven't seen it yet, may have some problems with, maybe compensatable problems traveling over this road when it does get rough. And I do appreciate the efforts that the department does put in to keep it graded and calcium on it and all the other things. And the road is in good shape once a school is closed. Typically, once they grade it once in the summer and look after it a little bit, it works fine. It's just the school traffic is beating up so bad, and there's so many kids in the school, and there's so many parents go, and the teachers and the school buses really get it difficult. Now, I know this is outside the normal process, but this is an unusual circumstance.
Thank you, Member. The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
As the Honourable Member suggested, I do know the road and the circumstances very well. It's a difficult one. It's a J-class road, and it comes under the policy for J-class roads for municipal sharing. Now, unfortunately, some municipalities have taken the view that municipal sharing means that the residents with frontage onto that road actually pick up the cost of that accrues to the municipal unit. In some municipalities, it doesn't. The problem is also further compounded by the fact that the school is at the end of the street, and the traffic to the school has to pass over the residential portion. The Minister of Education has to be persuaded, I guess, to step up to the plate and provide the equivalency of what the residential taxpayers would be paying. So as I say, it's a conundrum. It's one that we're working on diligently, but there's so many players involved in that particular piece of road that a solution isn't going to come forward today.